We've seen how AIDS can gravely affect those who have it and those who are at risk for it. Now let's take a look at another aspect of AIDS, research. In our cover story tonight, we'll talk with a leading scientist about his work in AIDS research.
In this lab at the National Institutes of Health, the new illness that has attracted much media attention, called Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, or AIDS, is being carefully studied. Since the disease was first reported in the United States in mid-1981, scientists have been able to make some important breakthroughs in the discovery of what causes the disease.
Well, the most exciting breakthrough is unquestionably the fact that in just a few short years from the recognition that this disease exists, scientists have been able to identify and isolate the underlying cause or etiologic agent. And AIDS is caused by HTLV3.
The Public Health Service has received reports of about 5,800 cases of AIDS with a case fatality ratio of 45%. Dr. Anthony Fauci is hopeful that the answer to this dreaded disease may be in sight.
I believe now that we have the agent in hand, that the amount of effort and energy that's being put into it by biomedical sciences, that within a reasonable period of time we'll have a lot of these answers.
Well, it's certainly nice to know that the future looks brighter. Now let's go to the lecture and join Dr. Anthony Fauci as he talks about AIDS.
This evening, what I'd like to do is discuss with you a topic which I'm sure all of you, to a greater or lesser degree, are aware of. It's a topic that has occupied the interest and energy of a substantial proportion of the biomedical research community here at the NIH and throughout the country and the world most recently. And that is the subject of the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. I'm working directly on AIDS, both clinically and from a basic science standpoint, but it gives me a great deal of pleasure and excitement to talk about AIDS, because it really is one of the few, or actually one of the only subjects of all of the subjects that we tackled throughout the years, where you really have to change your lecture every month because of the extraordinary advances and evolution of this syndrome. That has provided a great challenge for the scientists involved in this, and has provided in many respects hope for the individuals who are afflicted with this terrible syndrome. What I'd like to do this evening is to review for you some of the most recent advances in AIDS, as well as provide for you a background for understanding how we got to where we are today in our understanding of AIDS. So what I'll be discussing is some historical aspects of AIDS, the epidemiology, or as we say, the profile of the syndrome, how it came about, the populations that it afflicts. We'll talk about some of the clinical manifestations, or how the disease expresses itself in the patient population. We can now talk about something that I couldn't talk about just a few months ago, and that is the etiology of AIDS, and how an understanding of the etiology has allowed us to make great advances not only within the syndrome of AIDS, but also in a number of other diseases that have immunological components to them. And then finally, we'll talk some about the treatment and prevention of this syndrome. Now, first of all, we must have a definition of AIDS, and I will tell you right off that the definition that is given, although it is a good definition, in fact, it's an excellent definition, it has some serious flaws. And the reason for the flaws are that it's an empiric definition that is based on the secondary complications that someone will get who has AIDS. And let me explain what I mean. First, we'll go through the definition. It's the presence of pneumocystis carinii pneumonia or other opportunistic infections or Kaposi sarcoma. Now, for those of you who aren't used to hearing that terminology, what it is there's the presence of a disease in an individual that you would not expect to see in someone who is otherwise normal immunologically. For example, if I said influenza or the common cold or some other disease, you'd expect to see that in a normal population, in a population that does not have an immunological defect. But these diseases are present in individuals with AIDS, but the most important component of this definition is that there's an absence of a known cause of this underlying immune deficiency. In other words,